friends. Welcome to the series of newspaper analysis. And today's newspaper analysis is of 17th April, that is today, April 2020. Friends, newspaper play a very important role. They play an important role in giving us information, in giving us facts, the trends, the policy or the governance issues, the problems which is there in the society, and how the administration is responding towards those problems. If you're going to find out the right kind of information, which is going to help you in writing the answers of UPSC, your answers are going to be an enriched content which is going to fetch you maximum marks. So, this edition of newspaper analysis is concentrated towards helping you in finding out the relevant news that you should study, and also how you need to look towards a particular news. See friends, in a newspaper, not all news have to be read. I keep on repeating this point also in my classes also, that you don't have to study all the news in the newspaper. You need to find out selectively few topics and how you are going to utilize those information in the limited opportunity which you will get in the examination while writing mains. So without wasting time, let's start with the first news. Now, the first news is that the cases of COVID are increasing at a very fast pace, but the fatality rate is at 3.3%. Friends, here the number of cases are not important, but at least you should know the trend of the cases which are increasing. If you see at the first graph here, the red one, it shows that the new cases increasing rate, it is increasing. And the second graph shows that the recovery, that means if you see the recovery graphs, slowly the recovery rates are increasing in our country, which could be a good news. We are able to provide the patients with the relevant disruptions, with the relevant technological solutions, with the relevant medicines, so that they can fight the disease of COVID. And when you read the newspaper, particularly this news, you will see that the underlying portion, the health ministry noted that India's case fatality rate is 3.3%, and the percentage of the people recovered is 12.02%. That means हमारा जो recovery rate है, that is around 12.02%, and जो fatality rate है is 3.3%. And here one more important point is mentioned. The point is the ICMR, that means Indian Council of Medical Research, said that India tests 24 people for one positive case, while Japan tests 11.7 and Italy 6.7 and US 5.3. Many people are criticizing that the testing infrastructure is not good in our country. Particularly the opposition leaders are saying that we are not able to test enough amount of people. So ICMR had showed the data that for one positive patient, 24 people are tested. While in Italy it is 6.7. That means in testing, India is not lagging behind the international standards. Whatever limited opportunity we have, we are utilizing that opportunity. So we should not criticize that. And there had been in the news recently about a term which is called as rapid testing kit. Now, what is this rapid testing kit? See, first you need to know about the importance of this rapid testing kit. This kit is not going to test whether you have the COVID or not, because the standard method is polymerase chain reaction. India is utilizing rapid testing kits, which is turning out to be an alternative, of polymerase chain reaction test, which is very difficult because of the limited capability that we have. So rapid testing kit का काम क्या होगा? It is going to recognize the antibodies in the body. Like for example, हमको ये बात पता है कि if you have a particular disease or the antigen in the body, then the body generates antibodies to fight against those antigens. सो हम एक टेस्ट करेंगे जिसमें हम ये सर्च करेंगे कि क्या हमारी बॉडी में वो एंटीबॉडी डेवलप हुई है. अगर एंटीबॉडी डेवलप हुई है तो सर्टेनली वी आर गेटिंग इन्फेक्टेड विथ सम COVID-19 virus. So it is an indirect method since we have the limitation. We have the limitation of the polymerase chain reaction test, which is the most accurate test currently. So we are utilizing an indirect method to find out the antibodies in the body so as to predict that whether the sample population is having COVID or not. So इस न्यूज से 3 पॉइंट मुझे मिले हैं. पहला पॉइंट ये है हमारा मॉर्टैलिटी रेट क्या है, 33.3% है. परसेंटेज ऑफ द पीपल हु आर गेटिंग रिकवर्ड इज 12.02%. इंडिया का जो टेस्टिंग स्टैंडर्ड है वो जापान, यूएस, इटली के कंपैरिजन में है एज कंपेयर टू द नंबर ऑफ पीपल टेस्टेड फॉर वन पॉजिटिव कोविड. एंड रैपिड टेस्टिंग किट जिसका यूज कर रहे हैं हम, जिसके लिए हमने चाइना से इंपोर्ट भी किया है, दैट रैपिड टेस्टिंग किट is an indirect method to know about the antibodies present in the person so as to find out or predict that whether the person is probably vulnerable towards the disease or not. Now, the next news is very important because this is an interview with Professor Shyam Sundar. In this, Professor Shyam Sundar talked about the problems which is being faced by the unorganized laborers. एंड उन्होंने अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड लेबर्स को दो पर्सपेक्टिव से एनालाइज किया है. पहला पर्सपेक्टिव है यूनियन, दैट मीन्स द ट्रेड यूनियन, द रोल ऑफ द ट्रेड यूनियन विच कैन प्ले अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल इन प्रोवाइडिंग security, social security and bargaining rights to the unorganized labor. And the second one is the legal cover which should be provided by the government. When I talk about the unorganized labor, according to the interview, according to the professor, he says that on around 400 million informal workers, according to International Labour Organization, are in the problem of deep poverty because of the 40 days lockdown. These informal workers are not able to even get additional free food gains and pulses since they do not have the necessary documents such as the ration cards. So that is why the life of these 400 million informal workers is at stake, and the government has certain responsibility towards them. The government needs to understand that these people need certain kind of support. So then he talked about the steps that can be undertaken within the lockdown period itself. So he says that the state should set up a multi-party special task force or a board to take the stock of the stranded migrant workers and provide them with the relief measures like settlement centers or basic needs and facilities, provide them with the psychological counseling. There should be help centers through social media. So he talked about that there is a need of identification of the informal sector. There is a need of identification, and the second one is try to provide them with the relief measures so that they don't have to face the agony of crisis. And he also raised a very important point about the trend of migration. Now, if you see Maharashtra, in Mumbai, people belonging to Uttar Pradesh or Bihar are working as a migrant labor in Maharashtra. And these migrant laborers, the informal workers, are the backbone of the economy of the major metropolitan cities. So there is a possibility of change in the trend because people are moving back to their native places. That means the geographical composition of the migrant workers is going to change. When people will return back to their places, then certainly the employers may face the problem of labors, which may affect their economies of scale. So this Professor Shyam Sundar talked about the role of neighborhood migration. That means the long distance and indiscriminate migration as a solution could change into neighborhood migration. That means लेबर्स जो है उनके पास नेबरहुड में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो ताकि उनको लॉन्ग माइग्रेट ना करना हो. अभी हमारी इकोनॉमी में प्रॉब्लम क्या है? प्रॉब्लम है ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की, कैसे हम उनको सेफली उनके एरियाज तक पहुंचा सकें. सिंस वी डोंट हैव दैट थिंग, दैट इज व्हाई वी आर रिक्वेस्टिंग देम टू स्टे एट द प्लेस वेयर दे आर. So if you can create a kind of opportunity, an opportunity which is going to create the economic activities in the neighborhood areas, they don't have to migrate for longer distances, and the employers also don't have to face the problem of lack of labors. So in future also this problem can be solved, because COVID is just an early warning system. In future more biological attacks like this can happen, so you need to be prepared. Again the people will try to migrate to the area, so there is a need of change in the trend of geographical migration from the large scale migration to their grassroots areas to the neighborhood migration. And in the end he said that there is a need of two kinds of cover to the informal workers. First is union organization and the second one is legal cover. When you talk about the union migration, around 85 to 90% of the 470 million migrant workers are not under any trade union. Now, the trade union will have to adopt unconventional organizing strategies and adopt the sector specific employment measures so as to cover these 85 to 90% of the informal sectors. So trade unions should work towards bringing more and more labors under the ambit of the trade union, and at the same point of time the government should make the measures under Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008 and make sure that there are certain social security mechanisms put in place for the protection of the interest of the laborers. So, in a nutshell, if I say the conclusion, the point that we got from this unorganized labor discussion is, first, out of 470 million unorganized laborers, close to 400 million informal unorganized laborers are facing the problem of crisis. There is a need of a special task force to find out the problems, identification and providing them with the relief measures. Next, there is a need of change in the migration pattern from the migration to long distances to the neighborhood migration, and neighborhood migration should replace the long distance and indiscriminate migration. And last one is there is a need of two kinds of cover. One, union organization cover, and the second one is legal cover to provide them with the support, because close to 85 to 90% of the 470 million workers are not organized by any trade union. And these trade unions should bring them under the ambit and should ensure that they have relevant social security measures to support them. Now, let's move to the next news. This is a very important editorial, a blueprint to revive the economy, written by Chidambaram, the ex-finance minister. You can find out some important solutions which is given by Chidambaram, how to revive the struggling Indian economy under COVID. Like for example, Chidambaram says that around 400 million workers in India who are dependent on daily wages for their survival are under threat. We also already discussed this point. And since they are in threat, you need to have A multi-pronged strategy, and the strategy is like providing them with the money as well as with the food, as well as with the opportunities, because there are two sides of things in the market. One is demand, another one is supply. When we talk about demand, demand means what is going to be purchased in the economy, what is the immediate survival requirement. Like I demand money because I need food, so providing the informal workers with the money support, with the food, is going to satisfy their demand. But only interfering in the demand without caring about the supply, that how those demands are going to be met, is equally important to revive the debate and understand the credentials of the market debate, which is demand and supply. Now, how to revive the supply? Reviving supply requires reviving economy. Now, currently, the economy is facing lockdown, the business opportunities are decreasing, the stock markets are decreasing. So, in this background, the Chithambaram says that we should reopen the economy gradually. And not only opening the economy gradually, the state and the central government should work together, strengthening the roots of federalism by even promoting transportation, although with precautions like temperature checks and social distancing norms inside the buses and trains. A resumption of the economic activity, access to capital, especially the working capital, to the small and medium enterprises. We need to use the strategic use of the foreign exchange reserves to capitalize on the exports opportunity, because currently the world is facing crisis. And in the era of crisis, certainly the production chain will suffer. We're slowly reviving the economy. Not only India can satisfy the needs of Indian economy, but also could satisfy the needs of the world economy by exporting. There is a need of the financial stimulus. Fiscal stimulus means the government is spending, an activist government, on the demand and supply side, supplemented by the monetary stimulus. That means government को भी spending बढ़ानी चाहिए और RBI को भी spending बढ़ानी चाहिए, so as to support the complete economy as a whole. Because currently the Indian economy is facing the problem of Great Depression. Because not only there is an economic crisis, but also there is a humanitarian crisis. And in this humanitarian crisis, we need some unconventional response, which is not limited to only the government, which is also being supported by RBI. The government can promote Manrega work, because if the migrant workers are moving back to their grassroots villages, then if I can create a small amount of opportunity in their local area through the Manregas, the humanitarian crisis, which is deepening because of the economic crisis of the migrant workers, the informal workers, can be curtailed. And this is not only the opinion of Chithambaram, even the great economists like Amartya Sen, like Raghuram Rajan, like Abhijit Banerjee, who won the Nobel Economic Prize, also have talked about the urgent implementation of these measures. When you talk about the health infrastructure, Chithambaram says that there should be a continuous testing and monitoring, as the new areas may turn out to be into a hotspot. And the hotspot may become the non-hotspots, because this is very dynamic concept. A single person is having the capability to infect more than 500 persons. So when you do the continuous testing and monitoring, at least you can find out that which areas are more vulnerable and which areas are less vulnerable. And since the lockdown period is there, slowly, gradually, easing the restrictions on the non-hotspots areas, so as to support the economy. And this is not specific to our country. Even the countries like US, which recently passed the pay check protection program, where the government is going to help the formal sector businesses to keep the workers on their payroll without resorting to retrenchment. मतलब क्या है, आप वर्कर्स को मत निकालिए, हम आपको पैसा दे रहे हैं. अल्टीमेटली गवर्नमेंट को डायरेक्टली इनडायरेक्टली तरीके से इकोनॉमी को सपोर्ट करना ही पड़ेगा. सो दैट इज व्हाई दिस यूएस paycheck protection program talks about supporting the formal sector, not to retrench, not to remove the workers. And RBI should encourage by making capital available in the economy. This is also the need of the time. So as a whole, if you talk about the economic repercussion of the decision which the government is going to take, it will be close to 5 or 6 lakhs of crore. And if you combine the center and state's budget expenditure, this is close to 70 lakh crores for 2020 and 21. So 5 or 6 lakhs of crore is not a very big amount. You can take the risk here. If the people are going to survive, you can make your economy also survive in the future term. So currently there is a need of a helping hand from the government. And the amount of 5 or 6 lakhs is not very high. The center can borrow without crowding out the private investment by investing the same thing in reviving the economy. And finally, in the closing remark, the Chidambaram says that a microorganism has brought the humankind to its knees. That means what? A microorganism, that is COVID, has brought the great economic depression in the complete world. So we need to act now to ensure that the millions of the youngsters, the demographic dividend which talk about, are not turning out to be a disaster. So this is a very good editorial. I hope you can find out some important points from this debate. Let's move to the next one. This is again an important one. Here, the news talked about the problem faced by the migrant workers who are working in Gulf region. When I talk about the importance of these migrant workers, which are highly skilled or semi-skilled, highly unskilled or semi-skilled, they support more than 40% of the foreign exchange earnings from remittances. That means their support is huge to the Indian economy. And currently they are facing problem of alienation, lack of opportunities, because the Gulf countries are facing problem now. The Gulf country is reeling under COVID. And certainly if some country faces problem, it is going to support its citizen first. So they are trying to repatriate the workers back to their home country, and here we need an activist role of the government to support these migrant workers, because the states like Kerala, the states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, they get a lot of revenues, they get a lot of support because of these migrant workers who are working in the Gulf countries. Yes, so that is why, in a nutshell, the conclusion of this news is the situation of COVID-19 pandemic is not very good, and India cannot abandon these workers, these unskilled and semi-skilled workers who support more than 40% of the foreign exchange earnings through remittances. The government should play an activist role by bringing them back to the home country, providing them with certain relief. And again, once the opportunity is created after we are winning the battle against the COVID, send them again to those countries so that they can act like a useful resource for the country. So that's important about this news. Now the next news is telemedicine. Now recently the government has eased the restrictions on the telemedicines, because this editorial talks about a very important point. The point is, the technology will serve humanity at one of its darkest moments. COVID-19 is one of the darkest moments of the world. And the technology is again turning out to be a tool through which we are very actively fighting against this problem. Now, if I talk about the relevance of this quote that technology will serve the humanity at one of its darkest moment, which can also be a UPSC question. Here, the reference is given to the telemedicine, where the central has eased the guidelines for allowing the widespread use of telemedicine services. Telemedicines were introduced in India in 2000, but the progress was slow because this kind of situation was never created in this world. Now, currently, when the government has eased the regulations on telemedicine, telemedicine can reach the far flung areas, the remote areas, the areas which are left alone but still are vulnerable against various problems. Not only talking about COVID, but also people may suffer from multiple problems. And currently, the doctor fraternity is working very hard on COVID. So, how to provide services to the far flung areas? Technology can be one thing. Technology can again help us. The telemedicine can again help us in selectively fighting this disease together. And that is why the use of this telemedicine should be promoted. The transmission of the images like heart and lung sounds, cough, faster, simpler, are easy in the telecommunications. But at the same time, this editorial also says that apart from accessibility, which this telemedicine is going to provide to the far-flung areas, there is an issue of sensitive medical information. Because if there is an inadequacy in securing the sensitive medical information, which is going to be utilized in telecommunications through telemedicine, there can be issues of privacy and there can also be misuse of those informations. So accountability and accessibility should be worked together in order to fight, in order to solve the problems of remote areas. When I talk about the next news, this is again important. The important point which can be noted from this news is this news talks about the importance of data. COVID-19 has given us a lot of data because the reporting standards have improved considerably. And since the reporting standards have improved considerably, we are able to know the trend of the diseases. And the newspapers are playing a very good role in talking about the trend. The first news also, which I discussed today, talked about the trend of COVID-19. So this news talks about, this discussion talks about utilizing the statistical tools to gather more and more data, reporting them. And the journalism should give importance to the data. The journalism should talk about giving benefits to the society by providing them the trends by gathering the data. And not only journalism, but all the organizations which are collecting the data can provide for those informations, and so that the newspapers and other communication mediums can very properly represent the same in front of the population. So there is an urgent need of promoting information based journalism, especially in the environment where the data can play a very important role, not only giving the information to the public but also telling the medical system, informing the medical system about the need of the changes in order to selectively fight the disease. It is also useful for the future. So how data driven reporting, which is decentralized, democratic, and very effectively utilized by the statistical institutes can be utilized for the betterment of the society. Now, this is not much important, but you need to only know about the trend in the food production. India is setting the objective of around 298 million tons of food production. 298 million tons of food production in 2020 and 21, higher than 291.95 million tons of food production 2019 and 20. So, because of the expected normal monsoon, because the weather condition has also improved because of COVID, this can be just one benefit from the cause of this COVID-19. So there can be enough amount of food production, which is a good news for the farmers, which can reduce our import prices of oil seeds and pulses. So this is a good time, and also recently government has eased the restrictions on agriculture. So this is a good time when we can utilize this opportunity and promote in producing more and more food grain, and also exporting the food grain for earning the forex, because there is a huge gap created because of COVID-19. So from that viewpoint, this can be important. Now, when I talk about this news, Rupee hits a new low. This can be important from the perspective of currency depreciation. The rupee is depreciating because of certain reasons. Yes, one reason is the strengthening of the dollar. Second reason is peaking of the pandemic curve. The next reason can be the non-intervention role of the central bank, because central bank is not interfering, और higher gold prices. ये सारे ही ऑप्शन आपको यूपीएससी क्वेश्चन में दे सकते हैं, like which of the following could be a reason for depreciation of rupee. Yes, like if the dollar strengthens, rupee will depreciate automatically, because this is a comparison between two currencies. If one currency is going to appreciate, automatically the second currency is going to depreciate. Or because of the economic slowdown also, we are not able to export something, you will be dependent on more and more imports. So again, your rupee is going to depreciate. But depreciation is going to have an impact also on especially those companies which are taking loans from outside, because the depreciation will make them vulnerable to pay higher amount of debt. So that can be one problem associated with the depreciation of rupees. So you need to know about the points which are responsible for depreciation, which can be given as an option in UPSC prelims question. And we should also know about the effects of depreciation. The most important effect is the companies which are taking loan from outside will have to pay higher amount of loans. And the last news of the today is the stock market, how the stock markets are performing. This can be a question in UPSC by linking the stock markets with the economic growth. Now, stock markets are working because of the expectation. Now, how we expect the economy is going to grow in future. Now, the expectation is not very good. But the Indian stock market recently, it was bullish. Bullish means positive. That means more purchasing of shares by the investors as compared to the previous year, because of the expected easing of money by the government and also RBI. So yes, it was expected. Although the world stock market is not performing very good, Indian stock market is also performing not very good. But there can be a question relating stock markets with the economic growth, whether they move together or they move opposite. They can move together, they move opposite. Economic growth is the actual production, while stock market functions on the basis of expectation of production. So expectation of something and actual production are two different things. Maybe my expectation may result into production, maybe my expectation may not result into production. So it's not necessary that the stock markets and the economic growth will go together. Like currently the economy is growing down. Even few people are saying that India may have 0% GDP, or even we can face recession. So here this information can be utilized. How the stock markets are working on expectation about the future. Like for example, the investors are likely to focus more on about the job losses, or about the slowdown in the economy, or the lockdown. So they may think that in future also this thing is going to continue, and India may not be able to fill the gap which has been created by the slowdown. So the expectation is not very good. Economic growth expectation is not very good. Small amount of gain can be there just to expect some short-term returns, but according to the various research institutions, the consultancy firms, they said that the Indian stock market is expected to fall as the global markets in the coming future. So that can again be an important news considering the relevance in the UPSC. So that's all about the discussion of today's newspaper. I hope you got something. You might have noted some important point. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll meet you again in the next editorial discussion. Till then, goodbye. Take care.